Welcome to Crimepedia. I am your host this week. My name is Morgan. I hope you are having a wonderful day. And with me, as always, is my true crime BFF, is the host every other week. It's the lovely Cherry. Hello, Cherry. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. And this week I would like to be known as Jingle Bells.
Jingle Bells. Hello, Jingle Bells.
It is Christmas week, and it's our last episode of the year. So thank you. Before we start, thank you all so much for supporting us this year and for listening to our little podcast. We do really enjoy making it for you, and it's brought us to some cases that we have been really fortunate to help with. So thank you very, very much. And just in case we forget to wish you a Merry Christmas later, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So once again, just thank you for listening and joining us every week. It's been an amazing time. I can't believe it's been another year, and we're heading into 2024 here shortly. So it should be another exciting year for us.
You should. There's a lot going on, and bringing you more cases. Sadly, more cases that are unsolved. So hopefully we can continue to keep doing the work, and hopefully we can get some of those cases solved.
So, Cherry, I got something a little special for you. So I know that you enjoy a good older case. So I am going to be giving you a case this week from 1958.
Ooh, okay.
And this involves the disappearance of a family while they're out. Hold on a second.
Well, they're out what?
Did you not hear Maddie?
Yeah, I heard her. It was like, so you're out, and she went, what? I couldn't hear what she said.
What? I'm home. Okay.
Oh, bless her.
It is a case of a family who went missing while out doing some, some pre-Christmas activities. So this is the disappearance of the Martin family. In December 1958, the Martin family left their home in Portland, Oregon to gather some greenery for Christmas crafts. They would never return home. It has now been over 65 years since the Martin family's mysterious disappearance from the Columbia River Gorge, marking it as one of Oregon's most perplexing unsolved cases. This is Crimepedia, and this is the Martin family disappearance. All right, Cherry. Kenneth Ken Martin and Barbara Aileen Cable were married on November 28, 1929. Their family expanded over the years, and by 1958, they were proud parents of 4 children: Donald, Barbara, also known as Barbie, Virginia, and Susan. At that time, the children were aged 28, 14, 13, and 11.
Ooh.
So quite a big difference between the oldest and youngest there.
Yeah, 28. And even the oldest to the next one. It's quite a big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, 14 years between the oldest, Donald, and the second, which would be Barbara, also known as Barbie.
Yeah.
Now, the Martin family resided in a charming 2-story Tudor-style residence in the heart of Portland, Oregon. They were well-liked by the neighbors and were active participants in various community activities. During the Christmas season, the street on which the Martins lived earned the affectionate nickname of Candy Lane, reflecting the family's deep love for the holidays and their commitment to spreading Christmas joy among their neighbors. Now, Ken Martin took on the role of Santa Claus each year, delighting the neighborhood children with his cheerful presence and distributing handcrafted candy cane decorations to them. Now, known for their outgoing nature, the Martins regularly organized summer talent contests, set up refreshing Kool-Aid stands, and orchestrated lively parades that brought a sense of togetherness to their community. Now, in 1958, their oldest child, Donald, was serving in the Navy and stationed in New York. On December 7th, 1958, Ken politely declined an invitation from their relatives, the Evans family, to join them for dinner that evening. He mentioned that they had already had existing plans for the day and needed to honor those commitments. Supposedly, their initial plan was to embark on a day trip to the Columbia River Gorge in their 1954 cream and red Ford Country Squire station wagon. During this outing, they intended to collect greenery for crafting Christmas wreaths and other decorations. However, subsequent revelations hinted at a far more serious motive behind this excursion. Now, reports differ regarding the precise time the Martins departed from their home on the afternoon of December 7th. Ella Chin, a neighbor down the street, recalled seeing them leave around 2 p.m., while Frank Womack, who was washing his car across the street, insisted that it was closer to 1:30 p.m. when the family left. Clara York, a waitress at the Paradise Snack Bar in Hood River, initially recalled serving the family between 4 and 4:30 p.m., although she would later adjust her account, indicating that they had arrived around 2 p.m. So these times already you can see are kind of all over the place. So
yeah,
there's no way that they would have left at 1:30 or 2 and been at this restaurant around 2 p.m.
At 2 p.m. That's right.
I mean, between 4:30 makes more sense. I mean that's it's I mean it is a you know a decent drive from the Portland area to get out to Hood River. But that would indicate if they showed up at the restaurant between 4 and 4:30, that would indicate to me that they had already made some stops beforehand and had
they
had
could
at least
have maybe
done
they cut some
of their
some
activities.
food or maybe.
So her original narrative does make more sense, and the timelines seem more credible since she remembered switching on the floodlights in the parking lot just after their departure, which was as dusk was descending, right?
Yeah.
So we know, between 4:30, if after they eat, it's going to be around dusk. 2 p.m. doesn't make sense, and within that timeline. Now, the Barnes also made a stop for gasoline at the Cascade Lock service station, though there were conflicting reports regarding their arrival time and the attendants who served them.
Okay.
Now, under the Bridge of the Gods, which is also located in Cascade Locks, Chelsea and Doris Knutson reported seeing what appeared to be the Martin station wagon parked there around dusk. They did notice two men conversing with passengers inside the vehicle. Now, tragically, the Martin family would vanish without a trace that day, leaving behind an enduring and unsolved mystery regarding their fate.
How does a whole family just disappear?
No idea. I mean, without anyone knowing what happened to them, it would seem to be something that it'd be very difficult for a whole family just to disappear like that.
Yeah,
me,
unless they meant to disappear.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. If someone wants to disappear, if a family wants to disappear, they can definitely disappear. But this, it's quite strange.
Yeah.
I mean, the other option is they didn't mean to disappear, and there some sort of accident occurred.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think to as a perpetrator to make a whole family disappear is quite a mean feat, really. I mean, you get it that it's like, I don't know, one person or two people from a family, like, mother and child or something, but you kind of don't think the whole family, trying to keep a whole family under control is quite difficult, isn't it? So I wonder if it was something, I don't know, somebody's played some kind of part in their disappearance, but not necessarily meant it. Maybe it was an accident.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, definitely. Now, the following day, when Ken failed to report for work at Eccles Electric Home Service Company, and all three girls were noted as absent from school, all of their friends and relatives grew increasingly worried, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Now, ultimately, it was Ken's employer who raised the alarm about the missing family that evening, prompting an immediate search effort. At the time, I don't know if it stands for today, but at the time, it was considered the largest search and rescue operation that had occurred in the state of Oregon. So this was a massive operation that occurred when they were reported as being missing.
Because it's so unusual, isn't it? It is unusual for a whole family to just disappear. It's quite unheard of. It's not
Yeah.
something that we see or we come across very often. So I can
Hmm.
imagine it was a huge scale thing to try and find them, because you'd kind of think you'd find them quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the one thing is like this is a very remote part of the state. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. But
Oregon
this,
is a really remote, mountainous, very
oh, it
heavily
is
wooded.
mountainous. Okay.
It is.
Right, okay.
So where they were really close to really close to Mount Hood. So it's very mountainous. It is very rugged. It is heavily forested.
But not enough for maybe enough for a person to go missing, but not a vehicle.
No, yeah, definitely not a
So,
vehicle.
so I can understand, like, if they've gone off hiking or something and they've all disappeared, you kind of think, oh,
Mhm.
maybe something's happened to them, and or mum and dad have had an accident, and the kids are lost on their own, and then they can't get out because they don't know what they're doing because they're kids. But then when you put into the
Right.
mix that the vehicle's gone too, that's quite interesting.
Here's the thing too. Think about it because we mentioned it. Okay, maybe there's an accident.
Yeah.
This goes along the Columbia River, which
Oh, okay.
is
Oh, of
a
course it
very
does. Of course.
famous river in the United
Yeah.
States. Once again, it's not. It's far from being a calm river.
No, it's
It's
quite fast
very.
flowing, isn't it? It's quite wide too.
It is. It is.
I mean, it's a
But
huge
let's say
river.
hypothetically, let's say that there was an accident and the car ends up in the river.
Right.
You would think that the chances are at least there could be a survivor.
Yeah,
The
one at
chance
least.
that all
Yeah.
6 of them were to perish in an accident, unless it was a horrific accident, would be very slim.
It's the width of the Columbia River is 6 miles.
At
It
parts,
says
yes, huge.
according to the document, river basins in the United States, the Columbia by the U.S. Department of Interior Geological Survey, the width of the Columbia River is 6 miles near the mouth. This point is at the
Yes,
widest point of the river and lies near the
yep,
Pacific Ocean near Astoria. So that's 6 miles. That's a massive river. That's
yeah.
huge.
It is a huge river. Now
You
they
could
were
lose
more
people in
in.
a 6 mile
You
wide
can.
river. Yeah.
Yeah, so where
Yeah.
they were more inland.
Yeah.
Um, just doing quick little math, we're looking at about a half mile wide, roughly at
Yeah.
parts. So you're talking where they were is between half mile and mile across.
That's
So it's
still
still significant.
substantial, yeah. I mean, I'm looking on
Yeah,
Google Maps and it's about an inch wide. And so I'm looking at it thinking it's not that big. And then when I actually looked to see, I'm thinking, well, actually, that's a whole town, and that's the river is massive. It's actually quite a big river.
it is. It is a
Yeah,
big river.
it is a big river.
Absolutely. Now, the Multnomah County and the River County police authorities would take the lead in the investigation. In the subsequent days and weeks, investigators diligently collected all of the eyewitness accounts mentioned just previously and conducted thorough searches in the surrounding areas, encompassing both the land and the nearby Columbia River. Now, despite the absence of concrete evidence regarding their whereabouts, many people began to entertain the theory that they may have inadvertently driven into the river, as we said. Now, an amateur sleuth by the name of Donald D. Bain made a pivotal breakthrough in the case when he stumbled upon tire tracks leading to a cliff in the Dalles, which is a city to the east of Hood River,
Yeah.
Oregon. Okay. Now, below, he discovered a cream colored paint chips, which were consistent with the Martin station wagon's color.
Oh,
Now, the location of the tracks raised doubts about the possibility of an accidental mishap, as it was not situated near the road. Okay,
right. Okay.
so they thought, okay, maybe they had driven into the river, but then this amateur sleuth found these chips that led to a cliff, but where the paint chips were, it wasn't near the actual road. So it wasn't. So to them, that says it wasn't an accident. They didn't accidentally drive into the river. So it's not like they were going around the curve
Yeah. And then they've
and
just
plunged
accidentally
into it.
plunged in. Yeah.
You would have had to purposely driven off the road to where they found these paint chips.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, however, attempts to explore this part of the river in the Dalles yielded no results after two police officers, Fred Pierce and Ard Pratt, dismissed the idea, deeming it too perilous to send divers. So where
Oh
this was, the
yeah.
river was
It's
too dangerous
too
to
dangerous.
send
Yeah.
anyone in the river to check. Um,
There's like a yacht club and a marina, the Doles Marina and the Doles Yacht Club
mhm.
there. And even like at that point of the river, it's quite wide there. But there's kind of like little islands in the water there. You've got Lewis Island and
Yeah.
Clark Island. And I'm just
Mhm.
looking, and it looks like it's quite a scary piece of river there. It doesn't look, from where I'm looking, it doesn't look like you could just drive straight from it straight into the water. There doesn't seem to be,
No.
unless you're going down by the docks or you're going down by like right on the riverfront, down by the marina. The main road that goes
Right.
across here isn't actually anywhere near the river unless you purposely drove yourself in. I don't think you can looking at this,
Right.
doesn't look like you can accidentally drive in. But that's just for, I mean,
Yeah.
this is Google Maps 2023 that I'm using, so it's obviously just been updated.
Mhm.
But it doesn't look like there's any like accidental roads, you know? It all looks like it's roads that you know, paved roads that there'd be no reason for them
Exactly.
to be
Yeah.
driving down that way.
Yeah, if you look at
Strange.
the map where you said the marina where the Dalles
Yeah.
Marina is, that's probably
Yeah.
the closest spot to where the road, basically the road's touching the water. But
Yeah.
if you go in there, now I don't know if the marina was there back in 1958. Let's just
Exactly.
assume it
Yeah.
was.
Of course. Yeah.
Let's just
That's
assume
yeah.
it was. If
Yeah.
it did go in there, the way that the marina is set up is it's protected from the natural flow of the river. So
Yeah,
you'll
it
see
is.
that there's
Yeah, it's
actually
kind of
like
tucked in, isn't
there's a
it?
jet. There's at least there's one, looks like it's a natural jetty that was created to block it to the east, and then from the west it looks like it's
That's
more
right.
man-made,
Yeah.
like a wall. So the water would be pretty still there, and if they would have went into that like location accidentally, it probably would have provided them with the opportunity to get out of the
Out.
vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm assuming they would have checked that location out to see if there was anything there. Now, what I should mention with the Columbia River actually flows east to west,
Oh,
so
does it? Okay.
it's flowing out towards the Pacific Ocean. All
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So all the water flow is, and you actually see now there's actually there's a few dams out there by the
Yeah.
Dalles, and so the water is flowing west, and it does get the water flow actually does increase a lot right around this bend. If you'll look right where the Dalles is, right across from Dalles Port,
Yeah.
Washington, you'll
Yeah.
see that the river actually does kind of narrow a little bit,
It does. Yeah, it does go
which,
really. It does go quite narrow.
yeah, if you know anything about rivers, anytime a river gets significantly, um the width of the river gets smaller like that, so it's basically a choke point. You have a bunch of water that's going through a smaller area, it's going to pick up
Yeah.
speed, it's going to be much more treacherous. So this is not a place that you would want to go into the water at all. It'd be extremely dangerous.
And and also it's such a huge river that there's no way that the police could dredge this river in its entirety, especially with the fast
No.
moving current. So even in that, and obviously we're talking about 1958, so they didn't have the s- the sides, you know, the side sonar scanners and things like that we have nowadays. So this would be,
Right.
they'd be going in blind. You know, they don't have the machinery that we have nowadays.
Hmm.
They don't have the technology we have nowadays. So that would be it'd be very difficult for them to be able to dredge all of that to try and find a vehicle that had gone
Right.
into the water.
Well, look at the case of Nicola Bullies from this
Yeah,
past year, right?
yeah,
How long it took them to find her,
yeah.
and that river is nothing compared to the
You could
Columbia
walk in
River.
that.
I
That's
mean,
right.
it's
Yeah, you
basically
could. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You can walk in
Exactly.
it. I
Yeah,
mean, so if they today, if people have difficulty finding a
yeah.
body in a small body of water, just
Yes.
imagine in 1958 them trying to locate six bodies in the Columbia River.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
it's crazy. So I mean, if you go in the river here, I mean, you want to get out fast, and and if you don't
It's
know where you're going to
perilous,
end up.
isn't it? Yeah, it's perilous.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, Detective Walter Graven did receive information from divers from some divers, um, who did insist that this area would be ideal for diving, and they would affirm that anyone who was skilled in diving would encounter no difficulties in the location where it looked like the car could have gone in. So we have conflicting information. We have some police officers saying no, 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 can't go in there. It's too dangerous. We have experienced divers who said no, you can go in there. It's fine. It's if anyone who is skilled at this and who has done this for a long time can go into the water and have no troubles. So already there's definitely some issues with this
Yeah,
investigation.
that's right.
Now, on May 1st, 1959, so this is really, you're looking at 6 months later, a drilling rig anchor got hooked on a heavy object near the Dalles, but it was unable to bring it to the surface after it became dislodged. Now, the following day, um, two people, Ellery Colby and his wife, witnessed two bodies floating down the river while fishing near Cascade Locks. Okay. In the days that followed, both bodies were recovered, and dental records confirmed their identities to be that of 13-year-old Virginia Martin and
Oh,
11-year-old Susan Martin.
no.
Yeah, so
That's so
they
sad.
they found them.
They found the
Okay, so
kids.
so let's think about this. Okay, so you have something that could have been a body located in the Dalles, right?
Yeah.
And then a day later, we find bodies floating near
Yeah.
Cascade Locks. Okay,
Yeah. That's
so
horrible.
so if we were to look, I mean, that is a driving distance of 37 miles. So
That's
is it
fast. Yeah.
as very fast? So is it possible that what was caught by the drilling rig,
Yeah.
was it the
Was it the
girls? That's the
car?
one thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, was it the car or was it the girls? And if it, but here, actually, you brought up a good question. If it was the car, how
Yeah.
does the car go? The cars be in the Dalles when the girls are located nearly 40 miles away.
Well, because I wonder if if they've got into problems and got into the river, and then the girls have managed to get out of the car, but
Uh huh.
the river has overcome them. Then obviously they, once they pass away, they're just going to float, aren't they? So I wonder if maybe the car, that's where they've gone into the water, and then they
Yep.
floated. They've gone because they've been trying to get. That's really sad, isn't it? It's sad to think
It
that
is. It is very sad.
they're in the river. That's horrible.
Now, autopsies were done on bodies, and the official cause of death for both girls was determined to be drowning.
Yeah.
Now, a technician reported observing what he thought were gunshot wounds in each of their heads. And he would promptly notify Dr. Waterman, who was the medical examiner who was doing the autopsy.
Right. And what did he say?
Okay. Now, however, in the official report, Dr.
Yeah.
Waterman stated that no such injuries
No.
were
Yeah.
discovered.
Yeah.
Furthermore, no police reports or newspaper articles from that period indicated any signs of foul play.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Now, examination also disclosed that Virginia and Susan had consumed hamburgers and fries within 2 hours of their deaths, which would basically go with what we heard from the waitress Clara
Yeah.
York, right?
Yeah.
That she had served them approximately around 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now, interesting traces of metal, including aluminum, were detected on Susan's clothing. Okay.
Yeah.
And which becomes even more interesting when you realize that there was a aluminum smelting plant located directly across the street from the site where the drifting rig encountered the obstructive object in the river.
Right.
So were the bodies there for a long period of time and then they got dislodged and they floated 40
Yeah.
miles down the river?
Possibly.
Very possible, yes.
The way that bodies behave in water, we know from our friend Peter. I've watched some things that he talks about, and he'll explain the way that bodies will sink. and then they'll stay down there for a certain amount of time, and then when the gases and the decomposition process starts, then the body starts
Mhm.
to fill. But it can be that the body is caught on something, and so although they are filling with gases, they are actually
Yeah.
caught, and it's not until they dislodge, if they dislodge, that they would then float to the surface, and then obviously the river current is going to take them wherever it may take them. So I think it is
Right.
quite possible perhaps they were in that part of the river for a significant amount of time. I mean, do we know what kind of condition they were when they came out of the river? Have they said? I mean, obviously they can still do stomach content, so they can't have been
Yeah.
that decomposed
It,
because they've managed to know that they've managed to identify hamburgers and fries, so they can't be
right.
too decomposed. So you know,
So we don't. Now, it
okay,
would be my assumption because they were able to do a thorough autopsy that the bodies were in relatively, you know, stable condition.
autopsyable
And
position, yeah,
yeah. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Columbia River is a very cold river, which would make sense if the bodies
would be
are
preserve
preserved,
them more,
because
yeah.
so that would make sense. But we don't know specifically what the condition was.
So obviously the fact that there's aluminium within their autopsy findings, and the fact that
Hmm.
there's an aluminium smelting plant that's not very, I mean, that's not a
Hmm.
coincidence, is it? So that is
I don't
quite
think so.
clearly that the girls were in or around that area for some enough
Yeah.
time for them to absorb that.
Which is absolutely insane. So if we, the assumption that it was their bodies that were dislodged, I still
Yeah.
go back to 40 miles in less
It's
than a day
yeah,
that
it's
they
a long
traveled.
way, a long
That
way.
is a very long way. It's unbelievable.
But
Now,
is that within the realms of possibility? Yes. So although that's crazy, it is in the realms of possibility.
no, absolutely, you're absolutely correct. It's insane
It
to
is
imagine, but
insane.
yeah,
It
100%.
is.
Now, Dr. Waterman did report receiving numerous menacing phone calls after the bodies were discovered. Each time, an anonymous voice sounding like a young man issued threats against Dr. Waterman's safety should any of the other missing Martins be identified.
What?
Yeah. So someone would call in to the medical examiner and threaten him, say, "Hey, if we'll hurt you if you're able to identify any other bodies,
So that makes you think foul play straight off, doesn't it? That's ridiculous.
you do." Because I
Yeah.
mean, I understand that you have some really shitty people out in the world who want to, they want to troll people, and they want to, like,
Yeah.
insert themselves in the cases.
Yeah. For a bit of fun.
I don't understand how that's fun. How
No,
is
I
that
don't. I no,
fun?
it's not. But that's what they think, is it? They think that it's fun, but that's what they do it for, the laughs. But it isn't a fun thing. But with this, why would that? Why would you do that? Why would you say don't identify any of the other members of the family, or we're going to hurt you? So that doesn't
Hmm.
make very much sense.
Yeah. Now, Virginia and Susan were both cremated, and for unknown reasons, their urns remained unclaimed for nearly a decade.
What? So
Finally,
what
in
happened to what happened to their
1969,
friends and family then?
no one came to pick them up. It wasn't until 1969 that someone came forward to claim their remains, but there's no record of who actually took possession of them. So for 10
That's
years,
weird.
their remains just sat there, unclaimed.
But is it likely that somebody's going to go and claim some ashes of people they don't know? So it must be someone that they
No, I
knew.
don't
But why did
know.
they wait
I
10
would hope
years?
so.
That's weird.
Exactly. I mean, because here you have your older brother, Donald, right, who's out in New York, who's 28. He could have claimed them. You have,
Wouldn't he claim
I'm
them
assuming
straight
that they're,
away?
you would think so,
I would
but he
hope
didn't.
so. That's weird.
That didn't. So that brings us, yeah, and I'm glad I mentioned Donald, because that kind of brings us to Donald,
Yeah.
because Donald became one of the first suspects when it came to any of this possibly being foul play. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So Donald Martin, he was the last surviving member of the Martin family. Like I said, at the time he resided in New York when his family disappeared. Now, it was strange to people when he refrained from participating in the search for his parents and sisters, asserting that his Aunt Charlotte had advised him to remain in New York. However, his Aunt Charlotte would contradict the statement, expressing bewilderment at Donald's failure to join the search for his family. So he says, okay, my Aunt Charlotte said, don't worry about it, just stay in New York. She says, no, I didn't do that. I wanted him to come, but he didn't. So
that's
obviously
fishy.
people were going, okay, what's going on? Why is he not, more concerned about his family? And then now looking back, why didn't he, collect the remains of his sisters?
Yeah.
So very strange. Now, Donald also failed to attend the memorial services for both his sisters.
So that's a bit weird.
Yeah. Now, he would say that he had confused the dates, so he got the dates wrong. And so that's why he did not.
You don't get the dates
attend.
wrong to your sister's memorials, do you?
No, absolutely not.
That's suspicious behavior.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a sole surviving member of the family, Donald would end up inheriting the entire Martin estate, which included a $14,000 double indemnity life insurance policy, several other life insurance policies amounting to $6,000, and he also received $13,000 in savings. In total, the estate was valued at $36,000, which would be equivalent to roughly $372,000 today. So that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, a significant amount. Yeah.
Yes. Now, initially, Detective Graven harbored suspicion that Donald might have played a role in his family's disappearance. These suspicions deepened after discovery Donald's troubled past. Now, 4 years before this, he had been dismissed from his job at Meyer and Frank, which was a department store in Portland, for stealing merchandise valued over $2,000. Now, according to Graven's report, Donald admitted to the thefts, attributing them to a difficult period in his life. He claimed that his relationship with his parents had become strained after revealing his homosexuality. Allegedly, he disparaged his mother as a weighty individual and criticized his father in similar terms. Furthermore, he expressed apprehension that his sisters might follow in their parents' footsteps. So we know that Donald has done some.
Though? I mean, he's
done
some shady stuff,
so.
but there's a big difference between like stealing some stuff and murdering people.
Right, exactly. Now, Graven's report also mentioned, his alibi was he wasn't in Oregon. He was in New York, right?
Yeah, but has he got somebody to verify the fact that he was in New York?
Not that I was able to find.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, Graven's report also mentioned allegations of theft against Donald, which occurred in New York around that same time, as well as ongoing treatment by a psychiatrist in the city. Now, upon returning to Oregon in May, Donald informed investigators that numerous crucial financial documents, such as income tax returns and bank ledger books, had mysteriously disappeared from his father's desk. So he's claiming that, all this financial documentation is starting to disappear.
Yeah.
He doesn't know where it is. And so, I mean, it is very strange.
It's strange, but I still don't. Is it? I don't know. It's quite far fetched, isn't it, for one guy? I mean, what does he do? Arrange to meet them and then push them all in the water? How exactly has he got them all into the river?
Right.
So it's a bit far fetched.
Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but I will mention it now. Shortly after the family did disappear, an abandoned white 1951 Chevrolet was discovered in the Hood River, and it was later determined that the vehicle had been stolen by a former convict named Lester Kenneth Price from a friend in Venice, California, and driven to Hood River.
Okay.
Now, additionally, a woman's glove was found near this Chevrolet, and it was originally thought it may have belonged to Barbara, but that would later be determined to be incorrect.
Right.
Now, on the day following the Martins' disappearance, a black taxi was observed parked outside their residence at 7:20 a.m., and it would remain stationary for approximately 1 hour before departing. Okay. So a lot of weird things are that are popping up around this time of the disappearance, right? So you have
Yeah.
an abandoned car found in the river. You have, a woman's glove found near the car. Then you have this taxi that's observed outside of their residence and was sitting there for an hour. So what was that doing there? I mean, obviously, Ken Martin's not calling for a taxi to pick up the family. I mean,
No.
by this point, the assumption is that they had been killed and that they were, or already in the river, either accidentally in the river or dumped in the river.
Yeah. It's strange, isn't it? Because, I mean, that taxi could have absolutely nothing to do with it. It could just be that it happened to be outside the
Mm-hmm.
residence. It could be nothing to do with them, depending on what type the residence is. I mean, if it's parked on their driveway, it's slightly different. But if it's just parked on the street outside their residence, that might just be coincidental. So, although it's something you need
Right.
to look into, it's a bit unlikely that they're going to call a taxi, get everyone in the taxi, and then, call a
Mm-hmm.
taxi for the family.
Right. Exactly. Now, there were several other anomalies that kind of caused confusion and complicated the investigation. So I mentioned that they had stopped to get gas. Um, the gas receipt that was supposedly signed by Ken Martin on December 7th, 1958, was later examined and compared to several other examples of his writing, and it was determined that it was a forgery. So whoever signed the gas receipt was
It
not
wasn't
Ken
him.
Martin. It was not him.
Right. So, okay, wild theory then. Say the brother or the son is our favorite suspect for this. Could it be that the bodies were put into the car and were driven by
Mhm.
somebody else and then let go into the river?
I think that's a possibility.
That it has to be a possibility, doesn't it? It has to be something we need to consider, because
Yep.
if they're thinking that that's the only way he's going to be able to do it is if they're already deceased in the vehicle, and then he's like let the handbrake off somewhere and just let it go in, which that river is huge. So there is a
Right.
possibility that there are going to be some places in that river that you will be able to be unseen, or it's dark and it's less likely that you're going to be seen going into the river. Um,
Hmm.
and less likely that you're going to be disturbed. It could be a part of the river that there isn't trailer boats or trawlers going up and down. So that would be, I guess, my first investigation.
Right. Absolutely. Well, listen to this, okay?
Okay.
So, in addition to this forgery of the scout
Yeah.
sheet, a 38 caliber automatic pistol was covered in blood and discovered under a rock near Cascade Locks in January 1959. A single spent bullet was found in the chamber of the gun.
Right.
Now, bizarrely, the weapon was never processed as evidence and it was later
Oh.
cleaned and returned to the man who found it.
Oh no.
But listen to this: when investigators traced the gun serial number, they learned that it was among the items Donald Martin was accused of stealing from Meyer and Frank back in 1954.
Oh, this is just not looking good for Donald, is it?
No. But here's the thing. Like, even if that was evidence, you've already cleaned it. You never
Yeah,
processed it as evidence and you gave it back to the man who found it.
that doesn't
So
make
that's
sense, does it?
you can't do anything with it at this point.
No, that's not very good forensic handling. But we're talking
No, not at
1958.
all.
We are
Yeah.
talking the 50s.
Hmm.
The other thing obviously is the now that makes the autopsy technicians um findings of the girls having gunshot wounds to their skull, that makes that a little bit more possible. But then if the medical
Yes.
examiner is being threatened, then maybe he was just like, no,
Hmm.
no, no, there was no signs of any gunshot wounds. That was just a technician making a mistake because he's being
Yeah.
threatened. So that makes that a little bit more plausible now.
It does. It does. See, at first, like when I first looked at this, I'm like, oh, this sounds like just an accident, right?
Yeah, nothing
You
makes sense.
accidentally
All these
drive
little
into the
things.
river,
Yeah.
accidental drowning, But then all these little pieces start popping up. It's like, well, Was
you
it an
have,
accident?
you have to look at it because all these things are coming up. You can't ignore it, can you? You'd be silly to
No, you
ignore it.
can't.
Just like you'd be silly to wipe clean a gun. It's just,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
You've got to look at it, but it's not looking good for Donald at the moment. I would say
No.
he's probably prime suspect at the moment.
Yeah. No, exactly. Now, I've mentioned before, so Detective Walter Graven, he was investigated to investigate the potential criminal aspects of the case.
Yeah.
And based on his private journals, it's seen that he believed that the families had been victims of foul play.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, he sought to substantiate this idea. In doing so, he did encounter significant opposition from law enforcement agencies.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so a lot of people that he was trying to work with were really hesitant to think of this as anything more than just an accident.
Yeah.
Okay, now, apart from being denied permission to deploy divers to explore the river beneath the location where the tracks were discovered, Sheriff Francis Lambert purportedly, how do I want to put this? He basically destroyed Graven's report right in front of him.
What? Why?
He stated that this was in 1959. He stated to Graven that, and I quote, "We both recognize it's time to cease pursuing this case." So basically, he's telling Graven,
Yeah, to
you know what?
stop.
You've done enough. Just stop. There's
Yeah.
nothing else to investigate.
Nothing to see here. Move on.
Graven's
Interesting.
investigation unearthed evidence suggesting possible involvement of two
Yeah.
former convicts, one being that Lester Kenneth Price, and the
Yeah.
other being a man by the name of Roy Light, who would later be identified as an alias for the man actually known as Richard Allen Hunt. Okay, so we have two
Right.
people that were both former convicts that could have been part of their disappearance. The
Yeah.
reason for this is because Hunt and Price were spotted at the Paradise Shack snack bar on December 7th, which coincided with the Martins' visit
Yeah.
to the same
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, witnesses observed them leaving around the same time as the family. Then, after the disappearance of the Martins, both Hunt and Price disappeared from the Hood River area and purportedly spent the following 3 days in a brothel owned by a man by the name of Cliff Slim Bennett, who was a Portland bootlegger. And this was located in Dallsport, Washington. So right across the river from the Dalls, where
Yeah.
we had the obstruction in the river and where it seems like the Martin families went into the river, right?
Right.
Now, historical records indicate connections between the Oregon State Police as well as Multnomah County Sheriff Francis Lambert and Clifford Slim Bennett, and they all had financial interests
Yeah. Here we
intertwined
go.
in business
Yeah.
ventures, right?
I was just wondering that
So,
when you said about that, the police, like him saying, just drop this. I'm wondering, okay, so do these people have something in with police? Is there something
mhm,
locally, because back in the day, things were very corrupt in some places. So is it that these guys know something they shouldn't? Are they informants? And so they don't want
mhm,
they don't want to have them anywhere near this crime? The whole family's gone, so who's going to be fighting for it kind of thing? It's, let's just sweep it under the rug and forget about it.
right. So, yeah. So you have connections obviously to people that are breaking the law, right? You have you have connection to convicts. You don't
Yeah.
want to get dragged
Yeah.
into the mud, so you're
No.
gonna do whatever you can to make sure that you don't get yourself pulled
Yeah.
into the
You
investigation yourself.
sever those connections.
No, so you definitely. I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Where this is, maybe it was going to be a robbery. We don't know what
Of
ultimately it
course.
could have been, but obviously, anytime that you have two former convicts who were seen near the family or in the vicinity of the family and who happen to seemingly follow the family, yeah, you got have to question that.
Of course, it's not, it's a very very suspicious coincidence that two former, convicts just happened to be in the same vicinity as a family that went missing. Have they sort of
Mhm.
seen them in the diner and then thought, let's just take our chance? Because they are convicts, and are they, have they been fully reformed in prison? Probably not.
Probably not.
It's not true of all, it's not true of all people in prison, because a lot of people do get, reformed in prison. But it seems very strange that this all happens in the same place that they happen to be.
Right. What if I were to tell you that these two ex-convicts who have a connection to the sheriff,
We're mates with Donald.
well, they have a connection to Donald.
Ah, I knew it. I knew it was going to come up. Donald's still in there. Still
Mhm.
in the running.
Donald is still here. Okay.
Ah,
So you remember Donald had previously admitted to stealing merchandise from the
yeah.
workplace back in 1954, which included the gun we mentioned that
Yeah.
was later found. Well, when he actually was interviewed by Detective Graven, he actually changed his story. Okay. So he told Graven, and this is, and I quote, New York police informed me about that gun being discovered, right? Now he says, I have no knowledge of it. And he drops a name, Wayne. Wayne had a friend who worked in sporting goods. Wayne had an affinity for firearms, not me. So now the question is who is
Who's
Wayne,
Wayne?
right?
Yeah.
Right? And how is he connected to the Martins? Now Wayne, whose last name has never been disclosed to public, featured prominently in Graven's notes. Okay. He and Donald first crossed paths in 1953 when Wayne was a student at Portland State University and Donald was still employed at the department store. Now, their friendship quickly evolved into a roommate arrangement. In 2008, Wayne granted an interview in which he initially asserted that Donald's parents were unaware of his homosexuality. However, he promptly contradicted this claim with this following account. Now, Wayne stated, and I quote, Don had arranged a situation with another gay individual at home after Ken and Barbara had left, and his parents returned discovered Don in that situation, so to speak. I believe he wanted to come out with the story of his life and didn't know how to go about it, right? So he wanted to come out as being gay, but he didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Now, the identity of the person whom Donald was allegedly involved with had remained undisclosed. Upon learning about Donald's sexual orientation, Ken and Barbara sent him to a Christian college in Connecticut, though he ultimately chose to enlist in the Navy instead. Wayne, who professed intimate familiarity with the entire family, maintained a close relationship with the Martins. He recounted that shortly after the incident with Don and the other man,
Yeah.
Ken and Barbara approached him, questioning why he had never disclosed Donald's homosexuality to them. Wayne responded that he didn't feel it was his place to reveal such information. Now, additional details about Wayne include the fact that his father held a respected position in Portland, and while working as a physical education teacher at Cascades Lock High School in 1958, Wayne also became acquainted with two individuals whose names have become familiar by this point. That
Oh,
being
okay. The two
Lester
convicts.
Kenneth Price and Richard Allen Hunt.
Isn't it a sad situation if the death of these four people all stems from the fact that one person is gay?
It would be horrible.
That is really awful. And I think it's really sad that they found out that he was homosexual and they decided to send him off to a Christian college, thinking that that's going to cleanse him of his homosexuality. I think that's a really
Yeah.
sad, it's a really sad thing, because he is obviously in the position where he's feeling very misunderstood, obviously very worried about what's going to, what people are going to say because he's homosexual. That's the way he feels. He can't help that. It's just natural to him. I think it's very sad that this is all, it's all twisted and winding to be, it all stems from that. And now we've lost a whole family because of it.
No, absolutely. It's I can't imagine that would be the sole reason for it, right? Maybe I could see a situation where Donald is estranged from his family he feels ostracized from his family.
Yeah.
But I think Donald would have been the type of guy that probably would have got himself into financial difficulties, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For whatever reason. So I don't think it's necessarily like Donald saying, I can't take it. My parents won't accept me because I'm gay. I think it is, you know what, my parents won't accept that I'm gay, but also I kind of need the money.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see what you mean. But I wonder if it's just like, I wonder if it's more like he's harboring ill feelings because they don't accept him, and because
Mm-hmm.
they're struggling to deal with it, and so that's led to some kind of argument in which he's now angry with his parents. And obviously
Yeah.
his sisters are collateral damage, because it sounds like the mum and the dad are not accepting the fact that he's gay, because
Yeah.
they've sent him off to a school to try and fix him. So it sounds like obviously it's an embarrassment to them, because his dad holds a very good job and doesn't want a gay son,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not the done thing. But it's kind of, I wonder if that's what's happened. He's gonna, he's kind of thinking, okay, they don't, he's angry with them, and this has become a
Yeah.
situation, well, we can fix that for you. Well, I need the money anyway, so actually that works. And the sisters have become
It
collateral
does.
damage within that.
Well, I mean, you said that he felt like his sister was going down the path of his parents, right? Where they were not going to be
Yeah, they
accepting
wouldn't.
of
Yeah, they
him.
wouldn't accept him.
So that would explain why the remains would go unclaimed if he had no connection to his family at all. If he saw
Yeah,
his sisters
that's
as being
true.
someone who would
Yeah,
never accept him,
that's
then
true.
why would he then accept them and
Yeah,
take them in? Because he's going to look at them as people who don't love
yeah.
him for who
Don't.
he
Yeah,
is.
exactly. People that don't believe in him. So yeah, you're right. And that, you can see how that
It,
situation, and obviously if he's then rubbing shoulders with people who are like, don't have very good intentions, and are in a criminal kind of environment that can sort of make it sound
mhm.
a lot easier, they're going to be up for it because they're going to be able to take a cut. So it's very such a sad, for a family to fall apart like that and end up in devastating consequences like that. That's
Yeah.
really, really sad. That's horrible
I,
to think that your
I think
family
there's
member could do that.
Yeah, I think there's too much that connects Donald to this case. While he
Oh, definitely,
even if he
definitely.
was in New York
Yeah,
during this
definitely.
whole event, there's too much to say. I understand that there's going to be cases, there's going to be situations where you know you're going to have connections. You're going to have these strange connections, which is like, okay, well, oh, this person knew this person's, but they weren't involved, right? But with this one, there's too many. If it just happened to be the gun, right? Okay, well, people sell guns, and you don't
Yeah.
know whose hands it's going to fall into. But the fact that it was this gun and where it was located and where it was found makes it
Yeah, that's what
strange,
does it.
right?
That's what does it for me. It's the gun that does it for me. It's the fact that's what brings Donald to me into this. The fact that the gun
Yeah.
that he was accused of stealing ends up near where his parents and sisters met their end.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. So that
And
makes me think, Donald, do I think he shot them? No. Do I think he murdered them? No.
no,
But
I
do
don't
I
think
think he
so.
knows who did? Yes.
And I think Wayne does too, right? Because Wayne's located right where his
Yeah.
two ex-cons were, right?
Yeah.
He knows them.
Yeah.
These two men that Wayne knows, who has a relationship with Donald, who was roommates with Donald,
Yeah.
they just happen to be in the same location at the same time.
I think this sounds to me like Wayne has hooked up Donald with the two convicts, and that's what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
They provided a service to him.
I I think so too. I think so too. Um, I don't think this is going to be a case that's going to may not be ever solved. Um,
But I do think, I don't know, because I think that if you were to get nowadays, if you were to get police to look into this again, I think that
mhm.
it's possibility it could be solved, because the people that were in law enforcement at the time are probably no longer in law enforcement, and so there won't be that
Right.
close knit. We can't talk about this. You're not having anything to do with this. Let's throw your report away, because there's no one there doing that. So police that would be investigating that now would have no affinity to the police that were investigating it back then. So I think actually you'd probably find quite a trail of corruption if you were to go and research this again, and you probably would be able to
Yeah.
solve it.
Yeah. I mean, it could
You
be. I
have to
mean,
try.
I don't. You have to try. I mean, I think it depends on like who's out there, who's still invested in this, right? Is there anyone
Yeah.
that really wants
Yeah.
justice for family, which I think they should. Now, Donald would go on to get married and have his own family, and he would spend the rest of his life in Hawaii. He actually passed away in 2004. Richard Allen Hunt, he actually would eventually be placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. He would be
Wow.
the 14th person to make the list. So this was first created in 1950. So he was one of the very
Wow.
first people.
Yeah.
This was for unrelated charges of robbery, assault, and check forgery. Now, he would ultimately be arrested in Wyoming, and he waived his right to a trial before a grand jury. He would be sentenced to life in prison in 1959 after being convicted of an assault with intent to kill charge.
Wow.
Now, the sentence would later be vacated when it was deemed to be too severe a punishment for the crime committed. Now, he would get a new sentence of 14 years, but he would ultimately be released in 1958. Okay. Not sure. I don't have any additional information on Price. I'm not exactly sure what happened to him, but I can tell you that they have. In Wayne, I'm not sure if he's still alive or not, but both Price, Hunt, as well as Donald have all passed away.
Yeah. I think it would be very interesting if you had the powers as a police officer to go back now and to reinvestigate this and look at the files. I think it would be very interesting to do so, because I think obviously you'd be privy to information that normal investigators, say like you and I, you'd be privy to a lot more information than we would perhaps get. So I think in this case, I think it would be quite good to. I think it would be quite good to go back and have a look at this one.
It would be interesting.
It would.
Now,
it really would.
There's already connections there that you can make.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think you have one good investigator, right? So Walter Graven obviously did a great job in his investigation, but then you have other law enforcement agencies that I don't know if you can take their reports and their investigation so seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So if you have a hostile one hostile investigator, and then you have one that's legitimate, you're going to have so much conflicting information going back and forth.
And that's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame that everybody doesn't want the same outcome. We just want to get it solved and get this family. I mean, because there isn't anybody here that you're going to be able to get justice for particularly, but it would be nice for the family's story to be correct. And for the history, for things to be put right, the fact that they were murdered they didn't just fall into the river. It would be it would be nice to find mum and dad's car.
Right. No, and this is the situation. I mean, this is it. They weren't a perfect family.
No.
Obviously, they weren't a perfect
family. But
you know what?
Right.
No family's perfect, but they seem to be a well-off family. They were well respected. They did a lot of good. And they were going out just to, in preparation for Christmas. They wanted to celebrate Christmas. They wanted to do something as a family. They wanted to go collect greenery.
And they didn't deserve. They didn't deserve that.
They did not. Absolutely not. So that's our case for this week. Unfortunately, no answers to this day. It's been over. What has it been? 55 years
50.
Now?
Yeah, it will be 1958. So it'll be 60. 64 years? 65 years?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep. 65.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for that. Merry Christmas. So, that's a very, very sad today's tale. And at the end of our show, we usually like to give you something to smile about. And I've got a Christmas-themed dumb criminal for you.
Hey, criminal, use a dummy.
Okay. On Friday, November 27th, 2015, a man in a full Santa costume arrived at Campo de Marte Airport in Sao Paulo in Brazil looking to hire a helicopter. So this was the start of the Christmas shopping season, and it was Brazilian Black Friday. So the helicopter pilot asked him, "Why do you want to rent a helicopter?" This guy says he wanted to create a surprise to mark the special day. So the pilot is like, "That's that's really lovely. Until Santa pulled a weapon on him and instructed him to fly to a farm far away from the city. So obviously he does. The hijacker then gets he goes to where he's supposed to be in this farm. He then has an accomplice, not dressed in an elf outfit, but he has an accomplice join him, and these two people proceeded to tie up the pilot. They then made their getaway in a newly acquired helicopter. So obviously, the guy that he picked up can fly a helicopter. So they've dumped the pilot, and they've now stolen the helicopter, right? So
he can fly. He can fly.
Obviously, yeah. The other guy that he picked up is obviously a pilot too. So it took the
we'll
poor
call him
pilot.
Rudolph.
Yeah, we call him Rudolph. The guy that was the real pilot, it took him several hours to get himself free. He then informed the police of this hijacking, and the helicopter, as well as Santa and Rudolph, vanished into thin air. So
magic.
They've obviously gone to Lapland.
Whoa.
So not so much of a dumb criminal.
They
actually pulled it off. They actually got away with it, and it's never been found.
Wait.
So they stole the helicopter and never gave it back.
Do we know why? Do we know anything about them or who they were?
They just stole the helicopter. They don't know who it was. They don't know where they went. Nothing. Just gone.
What if it was Santa?
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. Funny that. Maybe Santa's sleigh broke and he's on his way back to Lapland. The only way he could get there quickly was a chopper.
I mean, he was probably in a hurry because, look, we all know Santa has a long vacation after Christmas.
He does.
What's a better place than hang out on a beach in Brazil?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably wearing a banana hammock.
Yeah,
right. Hanging out.
Yeah.
Because down in Brazil, no judgment. Santa can be himself and having a few drinks on the beach, and then it's like, oh shit, I got to get back to the Nopo.
Yeah.
That's where. Oh my god, I know where Santa is now. I gotta let
Richie Buck know. You gotta let Richie know where Santa is.
He's in Brazil.
He's in Brazil.
Real.
If you haven't checked out our good friend Jason's podcast, it's called Santa May Be a Criminal. It's a satire podcast, which is very, very funny. And it features a few true crime voices that you may recognize. So definitely check it out, especially this season. Listen to it from the beginning. It's a brilliant, brilliant podcast. And so for now, stay on the nice list, people. Be nice.
Ho, ho, ho.
Happy Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. We'll see you in the new year.
That was